Friends, thank you for accepting the invitation to enter this worship service. I want to extend my gratitude to the members of the First Congregational Church of West Brookfield who offered their time and their voices to provide for us the readings that we are about to hear. Thank you for entering this service in a time when you could ignore what's going on in your faith life and just be focused on what's happening in our world. I think it's fitting that at a moment when we are feeling isolated, as we shelter ourselves in place, as we seek to keep our own bodies healthy, and in so doing, that we protect the most vulnerable of our world. Because we know that herd immunity is not the answer in this circumstance. Because if we were to give ourselves over to that line of thinking, the numbers of people, the grief that we would experience, the loss would be so much greater. It is great, nonetheless. Our hearts are weeping. As Christ's heart was weeping on that cross, as he offered forgiveness to the world because we didn't know what we were doing. And quite frankly, we still don't know what we are doing. In 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 2, Paul reminds us that now is the acceptable time. Now is the acceptable time for us to lament, for us to recognize the death, for us to embrace the rising to new life. Today we lament the pain of this world and we face our complicity in that pain. We seek to be witnesses to and participants in God's power over evil in this world. Now is the acceptable time, the time when Christ's death sets us free to choose life. Let us be in a time of prayer together. Dear God, the words of his disciples ring in our ears, I do not know this man. The words of the crowd echo in our ears, we have no emperor but Caesar, crucify him, crucify him. And we long to think that if we had been there, we wouldn't have denied him. We wouldn't have run. We wouldn't have shouted out against him. We wouldn't have abandoned him to the soldiers and the spears. Yet in our moments of honesty, we see our heart of hearts. We know that the crowd is us. We know that the words are our words. We feel it is true because we run away from the crucifixions around us. We shout aloud in the din of vengeance and estrangement and hatred that makes our world. And the sound of the hammering nails we replace with the music of our own private headphones, adding our own soundtrack to drown the cries of those who are crucified. So God, on this day, on this one day, we ask that you let those sounds through so that the banging of the hammer draws blood in our soul, so that we are touched just for this moment, at least, just for this one Good Friday moment with the pain. We name the pain as the hammer falls on the nail. War, hunger, violence, homelessness, hatred, rape, coercion, sexual slavery, pollution, racism, hate crimes, homophobia, prejudice, exploitation, abuse. We have averted our eyes and let the hammer fall on the innocent. O God, in our shame, transform this sadness, transform our hearts, transform us toward your new world where there is sound of spring again. Bring forth your new creation, we ask. Not so that our guilt may be washed away, but so that the pain of each victim, of each heartbreak, of each loss may know your new day of joy in the spirit of him who was crucified, whom we call the Christ, who lives and reigns with you. Make it so, Easter God. Make it so.
When it was evening, he took his place with the 12. And while they were eating, he said, "Truly, I tell you, one of you will betray me." And they became greatly distressed and began to say to him one after another, "Surely not I, Lord." He answered, "The one who has dipped his hand into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man goes as it is written of him, but woe to that one by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been better for that one not to have been born." Judas, who betrayed him, said, "Surely not I, Rabbi." He replied, "You have said so."
Then Jesus said to them, "You will all become deserters because of me this night. For it is written, 'I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock will be scattered.' But after I am raised up, I will go ahead of you to Galilee." Peter said to him, "Though all become deserters because of you, I will never desert you." Jesus said to him, "Truly, I tell you, this very night, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Peter said to him, "Even though I must die with you, I will not deny you." And so said all the disciples.
And he came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. And when he came to that place, he said to them, "Pray that you may not enter into temptation." And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, and knelt down and prayed, "Father, if thou art willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done." And there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him.
They came to a country place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit down here while I pray." And he took with him Peter and James and John, and he began to feel dread and to be exceedingly troubled. And he said to them, "My soul is sad even unto death. Wait here and watch." And going forward a little, he fell on the ground and began to pray that if it were possible the hour might pass from him. And he said, "Abba, Father, all things are possible to thee. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I want, but what you want." Then he came and found them sleeping, and he said to Peter, "Simon, do you sleep? Could you not stay awake 1 hour? Watch and pray, that you may not enter into temptation? The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words over. And he came again and found them sleeping, for their eyes were heavy, and they did not know what answer to make to him. And he came the third time and said to them, "Sleep on now, and take your rest. It is enough, the hour has come. Behold, the Son of Man is betrayed by the hands of the sinners."
After Jesus had spoken these words, he looked up to heaven and said, "Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, so that the Son may glorify you, since you have given him authority over all people, to give eternal life to all whom you have given him. And this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. Glorified you on earth by finishing the work that you gave me to do. So now, Father, glorify me in your own presence with the glory that I had in your presence before the world existed. I have made your name known to those whom you gave me from the world. They were yours, and you gave them to me, and they have kept your word. After Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to a place where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. Now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, because Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas brought a detachment of soldiers together with police from the chief priests and Pharisees, and they came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing all that was to happen to him, came forward and asked them, "Whom are you looking for?" They answered, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus replied, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them.
I am not asking you to take them out of the world, but I ask you to protect them from the evil one. They do not belong to the world, just as I do not belong to the world. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. As you have sent me into the world, so I have sent them into the world. And for their sakes I sanctify myself, so that they also may be sanctified in truth. I ask not only on behalf of these, but also on behalf of those who will believe in me through their word, that they may all be one, as you, Father, are in me, and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. The glory that you have given me, I have given them, so that they may be one, as we are one.
After Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to a place where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. Now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, because Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas brought a detachment of soldiers together with police from the chief priests and Pharisees, and they came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing all that was to happen to him, came forward and asked them, "Whom are you looking for?" They answered, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus replied, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them.
And the soldiers led him away inside the palace, the praetorium. And they called together the whole battalion. And they clothed him in a purple cloak, and plaiting a crown of thorns, they put it on him. And they began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they struck his head with a reed and spat upon him, and knelt down and paid homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him, and then they led him out to crucify.
A reflection on John chapter 19, verses 25 through 27. Jesus predicted that all of his followers would abandon him at his death, scattering to their own homes. But all four Gospels agree that the women did not flee. They remained by him, vigiling. Even in the face of death and the fear of reprisals, they do not run away. In the Synoptic Gospels, they watch from afar, but in John, they are close. So close that Jesus can look down from the cross into the faces of his mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When he does so, he sees that amongst the women is also his beloved disciple, a man who remains unnamed to us. In the moment of realizing that both his disciple and his mother are present, Jesus looks deep into his mother's eyes and says, "Woman, behold your son." Then he turns his head and finds the face of his beloved disciple, looks him in the eyes, and says, "Behold your mother." It is with these words that Jesus commends his mother to the care of his beloved disciple and his to her. The question is why? What was Jesus' intention? One easy explanation can be drawn from social analysis. On the surface, Jesus sees to it that his mother is cared for after his death. If his death leaves his mother without the care of a male in the society of the time, her life would be unbearable. Unfortunately, women had to be linked with a man who could support them. If Jesus performed this service during his lifetime, he now gives it over to the disciple closest to him. The needs of Jesus' mother would be met. She would have clothing, shelter, food, and health care. We must, as always, explore the deeper meaning. In this moment, at the foot of the cross, the past and the future of the faith community meet. Jesus' mother, who birthed him, cared for him, loved him, and taught him the essentials of his faith, as good Hebrew mothers did for their children. Mary, who was the first to commit herself unconditionally to Jesus' teachings, represents the past. His beloved disciple, who witnessed his ministry, soon his death and his resurrection, represents the future. Within the space of 3 verses, Jesus uses the expression mother, mater, no less than 5 times. Jesus' mother, the first to accept his word and stand by him, becomes the mother to the model disciple. They become one. In his last moments, Jesus ensures the continuity between the past and the future. This moment is not simply a moment to ensure the care of his mother in a society that does not see women as fully competent or equal. Jesus' mother and his beloved disciple hold the responsibility for ensuring that the faith community will continue to grow and learn to thrive together. I ask you now, what was that new commandment Jesus gave to his disciples during their Passover meal? Jesus says, "Love one another, just as I have loved you. You also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." At the heart of Jesus' ministry is the creation of a new family of God. This creation is symbolized here when the beloved disciple takes Jesus' mother into his own home. Jesus was rejected by his own. But the beloved disciple's reception of Jesus' mother signals the possibility of a future marked by acceptance, not rejection. The new family created at the foot of the cross is marked by love and by trust. Isn't that what we all need? Even if our nuclear families are healthy and strong, we need a family that stretches out beyond blood relationships. We need a family that does not exclude some in favor of others. We need a family of trust and security, no matter what kind of blood relatives we have. We need a family that will help us know love, even in the darkest, most insecure moments of our lives. Look around you. Look beyond your houses. Look at the news. Look at your neighbor's home and imagine them, him, her, sitting there alone or gathered together. Observe the people walking by on the street. Remember the people that you encounter at the grocery stores who are averting their eyes from each other, forgetting that social distancing does not mean emotional distancing. See your brothers and your sisters. See your family in Christ, in God, in creation. All of us, united in faith and in love. Woman, behold your son. Behold your mother.
About 3 o'clock, Jesus cried with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?
It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. Having said this, he breathed his last. When the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God and said, Certainly this man was innocent. And when all the crowds who had gathered there for this spectacle saw what had taken place, they returned home, beating their breasts. But all his acquaintances, including the women who had followed him from Galilee, stood at a distance, watching these things.
What thou, my Lord, hast suffered was all for sinners' gain. Mine was the transgression, but thine the deadly pain. Lo, here I fall, my Saviour, 'tis I deserve thy place. Look on me with thy favor, and grant to me thy grace.
After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, though a secret one because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and removed his body. Nicodemus, who had at first come to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, weighing about 100 pounds. They took the body of Jesus and wrapped it with the spices in linen cloths, according to the burial custom of the Jews. Now there was a garden in the place where he was crucified, and in the garden there was a new tomb in which no one had ever been laid. And so, because it was the Jewish day of preparation, and the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there.
What language shall I borrow to thank thee, dearest friend, for this thy dying sorrow, thy pity without end? Oh,
The Word was first, the Word present to God, and God present to the Word. The Word was God, in readiness for God from day one. Everything was created through him. Nothing, not one thing, came into being without him. What came into existence was life, and the life was light to live by. The life light blazed out of the darkness. The darkness couldn't put it out. The life light was the real thing. Every person entering life, he brings into light. He was in the world. The world was there through him. And yet the world didn't even notice. He came to his own people, but they didn't want him. But whoever did want him, who believed he was who he claimed and would do what he said, he made to be their true selves, their child of God selves. These are God begotten, not blood begotten, not flesh begotten, not sex begotten. The Word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. We saw the glory with our own eyes, the one-of-a-kind glory, like Father, like Son, generous inside and out, true from start to finish. We all live off his generous bounty, gift after gift after gift. We got the basics from Moses, and then this exuberant giving and receiving, this endless knowing and understanding. All this came through Jesus, the Messiah. No one has ever seen God, not so much as a glimpse. This one-of-a-kind God expression, who exists at the very heart of the Father, has made him plain as day.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Oh,